God's chosen ones. 9 real body signs of a true spiritual awakening. You're not sick. You're shifting. The exhaustion you can't explain. The chills in still rooms. The tears that fall for no reason. That's not weakness. It's a message. Your body is screaming what your soul has known for years. You're waking up. An awakening doesn't start in your thoughts. It begins in your nervous system, your skin, your spine, your sleep. So if your body's been acting strange lately, and no one can tell you why, this is why. You're not falling apart. You're falling into alignment. She woke up again, tired. Not tired like I stayed up too late. Tired like her bones were weeping. Like her soul had been fighting a war all night in realms she couldn't explain. She sat on the edge of the bed, palms against her knees, whispering to no one in particular. Why does my body feel like it's breaking down when I've done everything right? But the truth, her body wasn't breaking. It was breaking open. This isn't the kind of awakening people romanticize. It's not crystals and calm music. Not yet. This is the raw phase. The part no one talks about. The part where your muscles ache. Your chest tightens. Your stomach turns against you. And everything you once ignored in your body starts screaming for your attention. Because your soul is rising, and it refuses to rise alone. You've tried to explain it. To doctors, to friends, to people who smile politely but don't understand what it feels like to be spiritually inflamed. You're just anxious. They say, you need more rest. But how do you rest when your whole internal world is trying to reorganize itself? This isn't anxiety. This isn't illness. This is initiation. You see, spiritual awakening doesn't start in the heavens. It starts here in the skin, in the bones, in the blood. Your body is the first altar God visits. When your soul says, I'm ready to remember who I am. And yes, it hurts. It confuses you. It makes you question if you're losing control. But you're not losing anything. You're being cleared of everything that isn't yours. If you've been feeling symptoms no one can diagnose. If your appetite has changed, your sleep has shifted, your senses have sharpened. It's not random, it's revelation. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk with you through the 9 real physical signs that your body is going through a spiritual awakening. Not to scare you, but to confirm you, because the truth is, what you're experiencing isn't a problem. It's proof. You're not broken. You're becoming. Type 1 M4 in the comments if you've ever whispered, something's happening to me, and I don't know what it is. Because this is your answer. Part 1. The weariness that won't sleep away. I don't remember the last time I woke up feeling rested. Not truly. Not the kind of rested where you stretch your arms and feel light again. No, this is different. I go to bed early. I eat clean. I try every supplement, every ritual, but still, I wake up like I ran a marathon in my dreams. Like I climbed through something overnight and brought the weight back with me. And for the longest time, I thought it was my fault. Maybe I wasn't doing enough. Maybe I was lazy. Maybe I was weak. But no matter what I changed, the weariness stayed. Then one morning, I sat on the floor, holding my coffee with trembling hands, and whispered out loud, God, why does my body feel like it's been working in the dark? And I heard it, not audibly, but in the deep silence between heartbeats. Because it has, you see, awakening doesn't begin with enlightenment. It begins with exhaustion. Your body is the first battlefield, not because it's broken, but because it's carrying everything you've been avoiding. Generational trauma, unspoken grief, the tension of people-pleasing, the mask you wear just to function. All of it stored, buried, bubbling beneath your skin. And now, as your spirit rises, your body has to release it all. This isn't burnout, it's detox. Not the kind that comes from green juice. The kind that comes from letting go of what was never yours to carry. Spiritual surgery and that fatigue. That's not failure. That's healing. What if the reason you're so tired is because your spirit is finally resting from decades of spiritual labor it was never thanked for? I used to force myself to keep going, push through the ache, drown out the heaviness, smile even when I felt hollow. But my body kept whispering until the whisper became a tremble. And the tremble became a shutdown. Because what I didn't honor gently, my body had to scream with force. Now I know, when you awaken, your nervous system starts rewiring. Your subconscious begins dumping years of stored survival. And that takes energy, more than you've ever used before. Not to run, not to build, but to finally be still. That's why it feels like you've done nothing, yet feel like you've carried the world. Because beneath your skin, your soul is doing sacred work. So if you've been asking, why am I always tired? when I haven't done anything. Let me tell you something holy. You've done everything. You've outgrown the frequency you used to survive in. You've started detoxing the old trauma. You've stopped betraying yourself to fit into spaces you've outgrown. That alone is divine labor, emotional breather. Close your eyes right now. Place a hand over your heart. Whisper to yourself, I'm not lazy, I'm healing. I'm not weak, I'm becoming lighter. And here's the deeper truth. Spiritual fatigue is sacred. It means something inside you is moving. Something that had been stuck for years is finally making its way out. That ache in your shoulders, that's the old version of you being lifted off. That fog in your mind, that's your soul defragmenting from the lies it believed. That desire to do nothing, that's God asking you to rest, so He can do what your effort never could. Soul question. What if your tiredness isn't a problem to fix, but a sign to listen? What if your body's not failing? It's finally speaking the truth. Let yourself rest, not just to recover, but to integrate. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're being rebuilt. Type 7.77 in the comments if this fatigue has felt like grief, but you're ready to see it as growth. Part 2, tight chest. Silent truth. It came out of nowhere. A pressure in my chest, like I couldn't get a full breath. No cough, no fever, just a weight pressing down on my lungs like a memory I forgot to release. I sat up, put my hand to my heart, and thought, is something wrong with me? I almost called the doctor again, but deep down, I already knew this wasn't medical, this was spiritual, because this wasn't the first time it happened. It showed up in conversations where I bit my tongue. It surfaced in rooms where I couldn't be myself. It flared when I smiled through something that wasn't okay. And that's when I realized my chest was holding all the truths I never said out loud. You see, the body doesn't forget. It remembers every moment you stayed silent to keep the peace. Every time you swallowed your truth, so someone else wouldn't feel uncomfortable. And your heart, your throat, they carry that silence like a wound. What if the tightness in your chest isn't anxiety, but truth? Trying to escape. During spiritual awakening, your energy centers begin to unclog. The heart, the throat, the breath. Not because something's wrong, but because something is finally moving. Old words you never spoke. Old love you kept giving from an empty cup. Grief that went uncried. Anger that was never safe enough to express. It all starts pressing upward, not to break you, but to set you free. And I'll be honest, there were nights it scared me. I would sit on the floor, hand to my chest, tears streaming down, and still no words would come. Just this heavy, invisible hand pressing down, saying, speak, speak, speak. But how do you speak when you've spent your whole life being taught to stay small, to be polite, to be nice, to keep your voice soft, so others can stay loud? The truth is, spiritual awakening doesn't just demand change. It demands honesty. Radical, holy, uncomfortable honesty. And sometimes, before you can speak clearly, your body will force you to feel everything you ignored. I remember the first time I let it all out. No script, no filter. Just me, sobbing into a voice memo, saying everything I had held in for years. I didn't even listen back. I didn't need to, because for the first time in a long time, I could breathe. You don't need to be loud. You just need to be honest. You don't need a perfect speech. You just need to stop pretending everything's fine. You don't need to scream. You just need to stop swallowing what God gave you to release that tightness in your throat, that heaviness in your chest. It's not trying to punish you. It's trying to prepare you for the voice you're about to reclaim. What truth have you been holding in your body because it didn't feel safe to say out loud? And what would happen if you finally let it out? Journaling what you can't say out loud. Crying in the car with no explanation. Praying without censoring your words. Speaking your truth in the mirror. Each one a holy exhale. Your voice is sacred. Your truth is not a threat. Your feelings are not too much. Your breath is the first sign of freedom. Let it move. Type 777 in the comments if you've been carrying silence in your chest and you're ready to start breathing again. Part 3, stomach of the spirit. I couldn't eat. Then I couldn't stop eating. Then even small bites made me nauseous. My stomach turned into a stranger. Food I once loved suddenly made me feel sick. Meals felt heavy. Everything I put in either sat like a stone or twisted into tightness I couldn't name. And the doctors, they said everything looked fine, but I knew better because I could feel it. This wasn't just digestion. This was spiritual digestion. Your gut, your solar plexus, it holds more than just what you eat. It holds what you can't stomach. Old guilt, unspoken grief, suppressed rage, fear that settled in your belly, like a storm that never passed. And during awakening, your stomach becomes the place where your spirit starts clearing house. What if your bloating wasn't about food, but feelings your soul is finally done carrying? I remember sitting at the table, fork in hand, appetite gone, not because I wasn't hungry, but because my body was saying, I'm processing something bigger than this right now. It was like my gut was grieving. For every time I betrayed myself, for every yes I gave when my spirit whispered no, for every time I held peace for others while swallowing my own chaos. And now it refused to stay quiet. Some days I crave foods I never used to like, pickles, ginger, citrus. Other days I could barely sip tea, and through it all, my stomach pulsed. It was something ancient trying to leave. It wasn't food that needed healing. It was me. They call the gut the second brain. But I think it's the first truth, because it knows. Before your heart admits it, before your mouth says it, before your mind can explain it, your gut knows. And when it's off, it's not just indigestion, it's interruption. It's your soul saying, stop. Listen, something here is not in alignment. You don't need another diet. You need to stop feeding your spirit what it no longer agrees with. You don't need another cleanse. You need to stop carrying emotional weight in your gut that your soul was never meant to digest. And I know it's scary. The nausea, the knots, the fear that something is wrong. But you're not unraveling. You're releasing. Your stomach is tired of storing secrets, tired of digesting guilt, tired of holding tension that was never yours. So it's speaking now with discomfort, or calling, with silence, not to punish you, but to purify you. What emotions are living in your stomach? Because you didn't feel safe enough to speak them. And what would shift if you stopped calling it sensitivity and started calling it spiritual intelligence? Grounding foods like sweet potatoes, soups, warm teas, belly breathing while placing a hand over your navel, letting yourself cry before you eat, asking yourself, what am I holding in my gut today? You're not weak for feeling it in your stomach. You're spiritually alive. You're not sick. You're clearing space for your truest self. And sometimes that purge begins in the place where we've been swallowing pain the longest. Type sensitive in the comments if you felt it in your gut. The silent scream, the unspoken truth, and the slow, sacred release that follows. Part 4, heat waves. Cold flashes the fire of the shift. It was no fever, no virus, no reason. But suddenly, my skin burned. The slow, creeping heat that started in my chest and spread like wildfire down my arms. Like something ancient was waking up underneath my skin. Then, just as quickly, the chill came. A cold that didn't match the room. A shiver that moved through my spine like a message from somewhere I couldn't see. I wrapped myself in blankets, but the cold wasn't outside me. It was inside, and no heater could fix it. It didn't make sense, but it felt real because it was, your body is more than a vessel. It's an altar, and when your soul starts to ascend, your body becomes the flame that clears what can't come with you. This isn't random. It's refinement. It's karmic release. Trauma unthawing. Anger burning off like old gasoline. Fear surfacing in goosebumps before it exits for good. What if those waves of heat were not illness, but invisible battles being burned out of you? What if the cold shivers weren't weakness, but your soul shaking loose from old patterns? I started noticing a pattern. The heat came when I resisted something I needed to face. The cold came when I avoided something I needed to feel. Every time I meditated, every time I cried, every time I told the truth out loud, after years of hiding it, the temperature shifted, not in the room, in me. I didn't know how to explain it to anyone, so I stopped trying and started listening. Because what if these waves weren't problems to solve, but signals to obey? Heat surges in awakening are often tied to anger you never expressed, shame you're ready to shed, old beliefs combusting inside you. They rise like a fever, not to hurt you, but to burn off everything false. You feel flushed, you feel raw, but when it passes, you feel cleaner. Cold flashes mean something else. A layer of resistance is exiting your field. Fear that once kept you frozen is now moving, leaving. You shiver because your soul is letting go. These symptoms are sacred and not clinical, not brokenness. They're the physical proof that your spirit is doing the work. When was the last time you sat with the heat instead of running from it? What if it wasn't there to consume you, but to refine you? What if the chills weren't weakness, but sacred confirmation that your nervous system is being rewired for a lighter way to live? Your body is purging what prayer stirred up. The fire is cleansing. The chill is resetting, and both are preparing you for peace. Let them pass. Let them teach. Let them transform you. Breathwork to cool the heat and ground the soul. Warm teas and weighted blankets to comfort the chills. Journaling what emotion you were suppressing when the flare began. Saying aloud, I release what this fire is clearing. You're not losing control. You're losing what controlled you. This isn't a medical emergency. It's a spiritual emergence. You're rising, and sometimes rising feels like fire. Sometimes it feels like frost. But every wave is holy. Type 444 in the comments if you've ever felt heat or cold move through your body and knew deep down it wasn't sickness. It was your soul in motion. Part 5. When emotion arrives without context. I was just folding laundry. A quiet Tuesday. Nothing dramatic, nothing heavy. And then, out of nowhere, tears. Not the soft kind. The sudden kind, like grief had been waiting behind my ribs, and finally found the door open. I dropped the shirt, held my chest, and whispered, where is this coming from? But the deeper truth, I already knew. This wasn't new pain. This was old pain. Finally safe enough to rise. During a spiritual awakening, your mind isn't the only thing being rewired. Your body, your emotional memory, is finally being given permission to let go. And emotions that were once locked in vaults. Trauma you never had language for. Fear you suppressed just to keep functioning. Tears you held back to be strong. They don't vanish. They wait until now. What if that random sadness wasn't random at all, but a memory finally feeling safe enough to be felt? Emotional flashbacks don't come with subtitles. They arrive mid-sentence. In parking lots, in grocery store aisles, in the middle of brushing your teeth. And suddenly, you're not in the room anymore. You're in a feeling, and it doesn't ask for permission. It just arrives, but listen closely. This doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're finally strong enough to feel what you once survived by avoiding. I used to panic when it happened. Why am I crying? Why am I angry? Why do I feel so much for no reason? But now I know. There's always a reason. Even if the mind doesn't remember, the body does, and it doesn't release until it's safe. This isn't regression. It's release. This isn't breakdown. It's breakthrough. You're not going backward. You're going inward. And sometimes, the deepest healings sound like sobs and feel like confusion. Before they settle into clarity, let the emotion rise. Don't explain it. Don't analyze it. Don't shame it. Just let it leave. Let it weep through your skin. Like the sacred river, it is. Let it purge the moment. You weren't allowed to cry because someone needed you to be strong. Let it pull up the time. You were scared but stayed silent. Let it cleanse the echo of the day you pretended to be okay so someone else could be comfortable. What if the emotion hitting you today wasn't meant to destroy your peace, but to restore your honesty? What if your tears weren't weakness, but sacred proof that you're real again? Let the tears come when they do. They have their own timing. Place a hand over your heart and whisper, I'm safe now. Use your breath as an anchor. Inhale presence. Exhale memory. Know that healing is not linear. It loops, rises, and softens. You're not emotional for no reason. You're not too much. You're not unstable. You're finally softening into the soul you buried under years of holding it all together. And if the only thing you do today is let yourself feel it, you've done holy work. Type 7 in the comments if you felt emotion rise out of nowhere and knew in your spirit it was something old, something sacred, finally being released. Your body was never broken. It was always holy. Let's take a breath together, not a shallow one. A soul deep inhale, like your body's finally allowed to exist without explanation. Breathe in the truth. Exhale the lie. You're not crazy. You're awakening. For years, you thought something was wrong. The exhaustion, the heat, the tight chest, the emotions that came without reason. They scared you, confused you, made you feel like your body was working against you. But now, you know, it was working with you all along. Your body isn't malfunctioning. It's remembering. Every symptom was your spirit's way of saying, we're ready now. We're ready to release. We're ready to rise. The world told you to numb, to push through, to ignore your intuition and trust only what can be seen. But your soul, it trusted what could be felt, and your body was the first to feel it. That's why it ached. That's why it burned. That's why it broke patterns through chills and trembles and sacred tiredness. You're not falling apart. You're falling into alignment. You're not behind. You're becoming. You're not weak. You're wildly holy. So the next time your chest tightens, your stomach twists, your sleep breaks into buzzing, don't fear it. Feel it. Ask, what is my soul trying to clear? What truth wants to speak? What version of me is rising? Because you're not just healing your body, you're healing through it. And that's sacred. What would happen if you stopped seeing your symptoms as problems and started seeing them as prophecies? What would shift if you honored every ache as a doorway into the life you were born to live? If this felt like your truth, if your body whispered, yes, finally someone understands me, type 707 in the comments. Let heaven see your confirmation. This isn't just a video, it's a homecoming. So subscribe, not for the content, but for the clarity. This space isn't for the masses. It's for the awakened, for the sensitive, the sacred, the chosen. For you. You're not breaking. You're returning. And your body has been guiding you all along. We're walking this path together now, and the journey has only just begun.